Ready. Play.
First serve, and then let's see what she does here on this point. I think one thing about Iga, she's always going to go for it, even match point down. She does go for it, but she misses it. And she misses the forehand down the line. And Gauff wins 6-3, 6-4.
Wow. Wow. That was, I did a pre-match poll on Twitter, and the straight sets for Coco scenario was, as you can imagine, the least. I think it got 5% of the vote. The straight sets win for Coco, but that is exactly what has happened. And Iga was vulnerable on serve from start to finish, almost. Certainly throughout that second set, there were some big holds from her at times. So yeah, wow. And now Coco Gauff against Jessica Pegula, and Iga Swiatek has yet to drop a set.
Yeah, I mean, I think Coco is. I think Iga, at least, she can take a few things that she did a little bit better in the second set. She took advantage of some of those double faults for sure. She managed to finally break serve. I think her return today is definitely something that she could get way better at. As for Coco, though, I'm very impressed in terms of the consistency that she had the whole time. Even when she threw in those double faults, they didn't end up costing her except for that one game, really. And just what she was doing tactically as well, with the way she was returning Iga's serve, the amount of pressure she was putting with her like kind of variation on the forehand is what I noticed. Just like getting the ball away from Iga, like a lot of depth, a lot of power, a lot of consistency as well. Like just forcing Iga to really press and go for too much at some moments, and also taking control of some shots in the middle of the court with her backhand wing. And just, I feel like the first 6 games, Coco was the better player, but Iga was still finding a way to make it pretty competitive, and I didn't know which way it was going to go. But then Coco really started to pull away, I must say, like end of the first set, and then end of the second. She won 3 games in a row in both sets. And the second one was from a breakdown. So yeah, this was huge for Coco. I definitely think Coco needed this much more than Iga did. Obviously, Iga would be in a different position if she didn't make that comeback against Krejcikova in the first match.
Yeah.
But I'd still make Iga the favorite right now against Pegula. Just the way that Pegula has looked this whole tournament, she hasn't inspired any confidence in me whatsoever.
No, but if and the problem, of course, that Barbora Krejcikova is going to have is to face an in-form red-hot Coco. But with Coco already qualified, probably as group winner as well, I think I don't know if there's a scenario where Coco can't now top the group. Bearing in mind, even if she lost in straight sets to Barbora, I think she would still have having won her 2 matches in straight sets, I think she's pretty much guaranteed to top the group and avoid probably Aryna Sabalenka in the semi-finals, and those two will be kept apart. And the chances of a Sabalenka-Swiatek match in the semis has now increased a lot. I would still go with Iga to get through one way or another by beating Jessica, and hoping that basically Coco can probably do her a favor in seeing off Barbora. But yeah, it's probably in the balance now in terms of Iga's progression in this tournament.
Yeah, I think so. And Gauff and Sabalenka have been the 2 best players, really, if you look at it since the US Open.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Kim Woo-Chang might. I mean, Kim Woo-Chang hasn't won a big title, but yeah, she would want.
Like right now, like this kind of level, I think if she won the title, I would not be surprised. Like just the way that she's looking right now, just the way, Coco. Because I think she really gives Sabalenka a lot of problems from the baseline, and I don't know, just the way that Wuhan match played out, even in Australia earlier this year, when I don't think Coco was at her best. I feel like it's a matchup I definitely want to see. I think I'm excited about Coco, the potential Coco versus Aryna final, now that I am maybe Iga versus Aryna semi. I'm not sure.
I mean, Coco against Aryna Sabalenka in Australia for a set and a half was gripping. I always felt that Aryna was just slightly the better player, which is borne out by the result in a way. I mean, it was a straight sets win for Aryna in the end, but that first set could have gone either way. I mean, it was nip and tuck. I'm not even sure, maybe Coco might have had a set point in there somewhere. But
I think it was 6-5 30 love. She served for 7-5
right.
first.
Okay, that's what I'm thinking. Yeah. But I just felt, even at that point, I still thought that Aryna was slightly better. And then when it did go to a tie break, Yeah, just having a quick look at the stats today. I was talking when she got, I think she was at 11 or 12 double faults. I'm seeing on the screen now 11, although I thought it hit 12. When I said if this goes 3, she's on target to hit 20 double faults, and I thought that might well have costed her. But then she didn't hit another double fault for the rest of the match from that point onwards. So yeah, a couple of aces as well there from Coco. First serve in, Iga actually did better than Coco. But the unforced errors, which over the course of just 2 sets from Iga Swiatek, 47. That does seem quite high.
It does. It wasn't necessarily the type of error she was making against Pegula, for instance, at the US Open, where she hit like 41. But, I don't know, they just felt a lot worse. These, to me, was just a byproduct of Coco's amazing defense and just kind of how pressed she was on her third shot, and just how she wasn't getting any purchase on her serve whatsoever. Like, I know she hit a lot more errors, but I think that's also just due to the matchup and just the way these both extract a lot of errors from the way they move and stuff. I think Iga will definitely be disappointed the way both sets ended. Like, I feel like the 3 games at the end of the first set and 3 games at the end of the second, she definitely really started spraying, and felt like she had to go for lines and press a bit more. There were a few moments where I definitely thought, okay, Iga can win this set. Like when she was down 2-3, 15-40, and then she makes it 4-3 from there, gets the break. But she's serving. But every time it felt like she got the advantage and even got that break, it felt like she was helped a lot by Coco, either by double faults or by just staying in the rallies. Like, it was so hard for her to just get that advantage that it just didn't feel like she was going to consolidate it at any point. So that's what made it really tricky, because I just think, Gauff kind of outplayed Iga in most departments.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, really, she let her back into the match in certain moments with those double faults, with a couple of errors, let's say. But in terms of the way she played the match, I mean, you mentioned the Coco returns and the depth that she got. Regarding those unforced errors, we all know how stats are collated. And if I'm right, Vance, you've even collated them yourself on occasions, right? In Cincinnati, am I right? You did that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, but I wouldn't be, if we could grade some of those errors, though we would lean towards an unforced error 60-40, and therefore it ticks the unforced error box. There were probably quite a few that were also, 40% forced, if you know what I mean, particularly on the return serve.
Yeah, there were so many of those. I mean, I feel like on the return as well, when Iga wasn't adjusting and kind of refused to back up behind the baseline, and she got caught several times with the body serve. It either kind of jammed her. Even on some second serve returns, I think there was some second serve returns that were just very uncharacteristic of her. Like, just, you should be making them in play, like, no matter what. And then there were kind of others where, like, in rally, she was like maybe forced. Maybe she played some great defense initially to get into the point, but then couldn't really put it away. And then we saw the error. And maybe that's a byproduct of just how many balls Gauff was getting in the court and just how much she was forced to kind of play in those longer extended rallies. But I think actually by the end, Iga got a little bit more comfortable in those exchanges and was actually winning a few more of them in the second set. But then those shorter type of rallies where, she was having to create something from the middle of the court or just behind the baseline a little bit, just feeling like she had to go for a winner or force the issue a little bit more. That's when we saw a few more mistakes and spraying, and especially the last 3 games of each set. But I mean, I think Coco was pretty selective with her offense, but when she was, she did quite a lot of damage. It was more than just holding up. I feel like the forehand was putting her in some good offensive positions. Like, she was hitting some really good backhand down the lines in the first set. Those loopier forehands, I think, on this court, actually, which takes the spin really well because of the high altitude and everything. It's actually pretty effective, the spin and everything. So, yeah.
And a quick word on our new world number, our confirmed year-end number 1, Aryna Sabalenka. Of course, it's more than just today, which has propelled her to there, winning the 1000 recently in China. Of course, the 2 Grand Slam wins, but a consistency as well in terms of quarterfinals at the French Open, final in Madrid. Didn't even play Wimbledon at all, but due to injury. So, yeah, very impressive. Cincinnati, of course, as well, winning that title there. So, Aryna Sabalenka, it felt likely before the tournament began, but now it has been confirmed, Vanch.
It has, 22-1 since the start of Cincinnati. And,
wow.
Winning.
That one loss coming in Washington, right? I think where you were, actually.
Yeah, Washington, and then Toronto to Amanda Anisimova. But since that Anisimova loss, Just that one loss to Muhova in Beijing in the quarters, where she was up 4-2 in the third. But apart from that, she's been kind of like almost perfect. Like US Open, she dropped just one set against Alexandrova, and never really looked in jeopardy afterwards. She won the Australian Open as well without dropping the set. She hasn't dropped a set so far here. And on hard courts generally throughout the whole year, she's been the best player in the world, no doubt. And she also, on clay, Madrid final, Rome final. So I think she really deserves the world number one this year with 2 slams, 2 1000s. Looks like she's going to win this title as well. She's the favorite to do so. Yeah, I think it's very well deserved. She was pushing for it last year as well. She came into the WTA finals with a lead over Iga, and this year I think we go into next year, and it feels like at all the 4 majors, she's kind of the best player. Like she doesn't really have a weak one right now. Like
I mean,
Clay is yet.
Clay is probably the one, but we know how Madrid is not bad for her, and I think there's a French Open title in her at some point in her career, and I do think that I always begin the year with thinking of Grand Slams. We've only seen one in my lifetime in terms of a calendar slam, I should say. It was obviously a golden one in terms of Steffi Graf. But I think, I spoke to her in Berlin in 2023. It was just after she'd lost that painful French Open semi-final to Mukova. And I do think that somewhere in these tennis players' minds, they try to play each point and they try to play each match. But she's the one, if anyone's going to do it on the tour right now, she's the one who has a chance, because Iga's just so far away at the moment, at least, in terms of winning the Australian Open, but Wimbledon in particular.
Yeah, I mean, like Aryna, she's missed 2 of the last 3 Wimbledons. So that's definitely, and then the other 2 years she played it in this decade, she made the semis with a real chance of making the final and getting the title. So I'd be very surprised if she doesn't win a Wimbledon soon, because her game is pretty well suited to grass just in general. And then for Iga, she still has a lot of work to do there. But I think for her, it's not. She's also kind of thinking long term, like by not playing so much after the US Open, with this new coaching change, it's definitely a long term view to try to get better in the other surfaces in the majors. And she'd rather be number 2 and perform better at the majors than be, number 1 and rack up the 1000s and win Roland Garros. So
I also think in terms of Iga, regarding this gap that she's now had, it might be a nice build-up for Australia. It might put her in a really good position in terms of physical situation, having taken this break between the US Open and the WTA finals, and then obviously she'll have a training block between now and the Australian swing. But hopefully she'll have plenty of energy to propel her to have a good Australian Open run. And yeah, she has, of course, made the semis there in the past, so she has got a lot closer to winning that title in a way than she has at Wimbledon. I also think, though, in terms of this all-court, all-surface, calendar slam notion, if you like, the thing for Iga is I don't think it'll happen for either player in their career, because there's just too much competition and too many variables. But the thing for Iga, she may win a Wimbledon at some point in her career. She may win an Australian Open at some point in her career. In fact, she probably will win an Australian Open at some point in her career. But to do that all in the same year just seems to be like too much of a stretch, that she'll have an Australian Open and a Wimbledon both happening in the same year. But for Aryna, I can see her winning those 2 titles next year, let's say. Why not come close? I can see she's the one getting to semi-finals and finals. I mean, 2023, if we think about it, she was she won Australia. She probably should have made both the finals of the French and Wimbledon. She was certainly in very good positions in both of those matches, especially at Roland Garros. And she was in an excellent position to win the US Open title that year in terms of being up a set, obviously, and playing so well against Coco before Coco did marvelously to come back. But listen, that is all for the future. Coming back to the present, Iga Swiatek with it all to play for still. She loses her just the second time in her career. She loses to Coco Gauff. Coco being the much better player today, 6-3, 6-4. Coco now is through to the semi-finals. She can chill out, whereas Iga will go up against... indirectly, will go up against Barbora Krejcikova, and depends on how, of course, those two do in their respective last matches to see who also qualifies from this group alongside Coco. But just want to say a big thanks to you, Vanch, for joining me today.
Yep, this was always going to be a good match to watch given the circumstances, and yeah, I guess give us a lot of talking points and things to chew on the whole time, and yeah, it was fun.
Thanks very much. I nearly called you Coco there. No, the day is all about Coco for sure, and that's what's on my mind. But yeah, big thanks for you to joining me today, and for everyone else, you know the drill.
If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell so you don't miss out on all things tennis.
If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell so you don't miss out on all things tennis.